We've heard a lot in the news that the army of a country attacked somewhere using bombs and weapons containing depleted uranium. Until now, we knew that atomic bombs and other terrifying weapons had been made that produce uranium and radioactive rays, but we didn't know what their weakened form was. Today in this video, we want to find out what weapons containing depleted uranium are and what harm they bring to the victims. In the past few decades, tanks have been a military tool, and countries competed to produce the best tanks. One of the weapons that tanks use is the M1 Abrams tank shell. This shell contains depleted uranium, and the US calls it the deadly dart. So, if uranium is deadly, why is it used in these shells? In the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, we heard that shells containing depleted uranium were used. Let's first see what kind of uranium this is. Depleted uranium means the same uranium-238 that naturally exists on Earth. As you know, uranium is the heaviest natural element in the universe, and no other element is as heavy. That's why the US military uses this element in its shells. It's not just for its deadliness, but also because the weight of this element causes tank armor or barriers to easily break. Honestly, we don't like to talk about war, but this is a new technology. We should note that one of the most accurate tanks recently is the M1 Abrams. This tank scans its own 2-kilometer radius and can shoot anything that moves. Whether the victim is stationary or in motion doesn't matter to this tank, and it hits with about a 90% accuracy. This tank is known as the most precise tank in the world. If you want to buy this tank from its American manufacturer, General Dynamics Land Systems, you first need to prove who you are and where you intend to use it. If it's for the US Army, the tank costs $10 million. But if it's for the allied armies of the US, like Saudi Arabia or Egypt, it's almost $24 million. Now, let's forget about the tank and see how these bullets, as mentioned in the beginning of the video, are. I must say that bullets from regular tank shells penetrate tank armor of 400 millimeters. When the Americans saw the T-80 Soviet tank, which was the newest Soviet tank, they were very concerned and thought that the thickness of the armor of this tank was more than 40 centimeters, and our tank bullets couldn't affect these tanks. For this reason, they were looking to create a strange bullet. Bullets that could penetrate thicknesses greater than 40 centimeters. In this situation, various American engineers determined that to penetrate thicker armor, they needed to use uranium. The Americans rightly thought that the heavy weight of uranium had caused these bullets to penetrate armor up to 57 centimeters. An advanced and strange bullet had been invented. The invention of this bullet was very secretive, and no one knew that Americans were capable of making such a bullet. For example, in the war with Iraq, we saw that Iraq brought its tanks forward against the US Army. Iraqi tanks were like toys against the new bullets of the US Army, easily destroyed by a single bullet. If Iraqis had known that Americans had such a weapon, they would never have brought their tanks forward to confront the US. A terrifying point about these bullets is that when fired, they move almost 3.5 kilometers without losing speed, meaning gravity has no effect on them. A bullet like this one in the 1990s was extremely terrifying, meaning occupants of any type of tank had no security against these bullets. As we mentioned, this tank scans its own 2-kilometer radius, and a frightening bullet is carried with it. Is there something even more alarming than this? Surely, you're familiar with tungsten, I must say that the most advanced tank bullets before the invention of uranium bullets were tungsten bullets. Tungsten is a very strong metal, but a problem it has is that when fired and hits tank armor, instead of breaking and piercing, the bullet becomes smooth and loses the ability to penetrate tank armor. However, it was good for before the 1990s, but depleted uranium completely changed the world of tanks. When depleted uranium hits a tank's armor, instead of becoming smooth, it shatters the armor and goes through easily piercing the tank's body or armor. That's why it can pierce 57 centimeters of armor like cutting through cheese. Another interesting thing about these bullets is that uranium is an abundant metal on the Earth's surface. Despite tungsten being better in this regard, uranium is much more abundant than tungsten. Please note that the uranium we're talking about is not the uranium used to make atomic bombs or in nuclear power plants. The uranium we're discussing is uranium-238. If we want to use this uranium in an atomic bomb, we have to separate the isotopes of uranium-235 from it, which is called enrichment. The percentage of enrichment for making an atomic bomb is very high, but for nuclear power plants, it's much lower. As you know, enriched uranium is full of radioactivity, and it cannot be compared to the uranium used in these bullets. However, for the health of humans and animals, it is not harmful. Uranium-238 is also a toxic element, and when these bullets are fired in the environment, they inevitably contaminate it to some extent. Breathing in the environment where these bullets are fired, as reported in Afghanistan and Iraq, can cause significant damage to human kidneys. Kidney injuries have also been reported in American soldiers. In the Yugoslav wars, more than 10,000 of these bullets were fired, and there were reports of kidney injuries there as well. It's important to note that wherever this metal explodes, the air in that area becomes contaminated, affecting the kidneys of anyone breathing it directly. Despite the significant harm caused by these bullets, they have, in a way, become historic. After the invention of these bullets, the importance of tanks has significantly decreased. Tanks are no longer as effective when facing an explosive bullet, so there's no room for debate. It's painful to think that these tanks, each costing over $10 million, can be destroyed by a single bullet. So, it's better not to engage in war with tanks altogether. This bullet has diminished the role of tanks in warfare. Another factor contributing to the devaluation of tanks is the availability of anti-tank missiles, which cost less than half of a tank but can accurately destroy one without fail. Tanks have truly become less valuable in warfare. Nevertheless, many tanks, like the M1 Abrams, are still being produced. And these bullets are still being used in recent conflicts such as the Russia-Ukraine war. Recently, these terrifying bullets have been given a name: tankkiller. This bullet has put the tank generation in question. We advocate for the extinction of even fighter jets, or better yet, questioning the necessity of war altogether. Thank you for joining us with another video with VersaVista.